If you Google the top 10 solutions to climate change, top 20, 30, 40, 50, you name a number, but the top ones, what you get are proverbs. It's kind of like be kind to your mother, you know, eat smart, consume less, be efficient, move closer to work, use power strips at home. I mean, things that are definitely sensible, make total sense, but also give you a sense that we're screwed. Because you know the enormity of the problem, the challenge that exists, it makes you feel sort of hopeless, actually. Most of the solutions in the world that are being proffered to people are about people's beliefs, whether they're from experts or they're from activists or they're from you know, institutes or NGOs. It's just our beliefs about what we need to do. And like any good proverb, they're true, but they don't actually come together in a way that gives us a sense that cumulatively together and with those solutions, we can actually reverse global warming. And the idea that we should aim for mitigation or reduction or stabilization is just crazy, because ppm right now of carbon dioxide parts per million is 402. Humans have never existed when it was over 300. So we're in terra nova. We're in a place right now that no human being of any sort of type, and certainly civilizational or not, has ever existed. So the science about what's going to happen, how fast it's going to happen, is actually speculative. It's good science, but it's speculative. And the idea that we should adapt, mitigate, reduce at this point at 402 is, to me, absurd. If you're going the wrong way, you have to stop. You just can't slow down and say, now we're not going the wrong way. You still are going the wrong way. And that's why I say right now the proposals around addressing global warming are like Thelma and Louise in slow motion. We're just going right over the cliff, but we want to go slower. And that is not an inspirational goal for humankind. The only goal that makes sense for humanity is to reverse global warming. It's to stop, turn around, and go the other way. And I don't believe that you can achieve something if you don't name what it is you want to achieve. And naming the goal of reversal actually opens up possibility. There's this idea that somehow if we make our goals too big, you know, that it's too hard. It's the other way around. The bigger you make your goal, the more spaciousness there is in your mind, and creativity, imagination soars within a big goal and doesn't get very far when the goal is really tiny and minuscule. Drawdown is the point in time when greenhouse gases peak and begin to go down on a year-to-year basis. At least that's what it means in respect to climate. You can't achieve drawdown unless you bring carbon back home, because we're way past the point in the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere that would lead to a stabilized planet, or stabilized weather systems. That's gone. So drawdown depends on bringing carbon back home. There's only one way we know how to do it, and it happens every year, and that is through photosynthesis. And if you look at NASA maps of carbon dioxide emissions span of a year, what you see is that every year, actually, we do draw down 6 to 7 ppm. So it goes up and it goes down, it goes up and it goes down. The problem is it doesn't go down to where it was before, and so there is a slow incremental increase of CO2 and greenhouse gases. So it's really about that equilibration, getting to that point where we bring back every year, over the course of a year, the same amount that we're emitting, and then bringing back a little more, and that points drawdown. And that is a very doable thing. And the way we face it, the way we looked at it, is as if it's, you know, almost an impossible task, you know. And it's just, it's the other way around. The solutions are surround us and around us all the time. The IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, is the most magnificent and greatest scientific endeavor in the history of humankind. There is no second or third place. Given that, you would think that we would know what to do cold. But actually the IPCC doesn't really work on solutions. They do have a third working group that is about solutions, and the one that came out 2 years ago was 2,017 pages long, and I don't think anybody I know read it, and it didn't become accessible in a way to people that they knew what to do as individuals, as communities, neighborhoods, cities, towns. It didn't make sense at all. It was science. So when we started Project Drawdown, we were working into a vacuum. What we did is map, measure, and model extant, existing, practical, hands-on, W.W. Granger, everybody can get them solutions or do them, and see what would happen if they continued to scale in a rigorous but reasonable way over 30 years, and whether or not we could achieve drawdown, which is that first point in time when greenhouse gases decline. And we just began a process of mapping and measuring and modeling them. But first we had to cull them and collate them and look at them all. We looked at hundreds of solutions and started to, in a sense, measure their impact. Either they have an impact in terms of reducing the amount of carbon, CO2, or greenhouse gases that are going up, or they actually bring carbon dioxide back home. They sequester carbon. And we obviously were interested in both. And in that process, we only used peer-reviewed literature to measure the carbon impact. We didn't use anecdotes or stories or narratives. And on the economic side, the same thing. We modeled both the impact and the cost and the savings. It's a very complex model because every solution impacts every other solution in some way. It's one system, it's one Earth. And when the solutions came out, we were shocked. When the top solutions, we were like, no, you're kidding. And we didn't even see it coming, actually. You would imagine, or at least I think most people imagine, that the top solutions would be solar and wind and electric vehicles, don't cut trees and stop eating beef, and there's some truth to that, but not as much as you think. The top solution is actually refrigerant management, which is so prosaic, but the hydrofluorocarbons used in air conditioners and refrigerators are thousands of times more powerful in their greenhouse warming potential as our CO2 gases. And so a small release of those has a much, much bigger impact. And the second one was onshore wind, which I think not unexpected or not surprising. The third one, biggest solution, is reduce food waste. And that surprised us. And when you think about it, we use 10 calories for every calorie we eat. We have an extraordinary agricultural system in terms of how much energy it uses and wastes. It's not just the production of the food, it's the cold chains, it's the trucking, it's the stores, it's the grab-and-go cases, it's like driving to the store, it's going back home, it's the packaging, it's the plastic. Our food system is very energy intensive. And then that food goes into landfills, and that landfills are anaerobic and they produce methane gas, which is 25 times more powerful than CO2 in terms of its greenhouse warming potential. So food is critical. And then right next to that, at number 4, is actually plant-rich diet. It's not vegan or vegetarian. You may, that's fine. But it's a reduced meat diet for sure, to the level where actually it's healthy. And then number 5 is protecting and restoring tropical forests. Number 6 is educating girls. It's the girl effect. It's been talked about much. And if she goes beyond 10th grade, she becomes a woman more on her terms. She's educated. Her choices, her reproductive choices change. They earn more money and put the resources into fewer children. So they're now on a cycle of well-being, so to speak. And then number 7 solution is family planning. Those two combined, if you put them together, are the number 1 solution to global warming, which is empowering girls and women. And all I can say to that is, who knew? It's not a solar panel, it's a woman. And when you really let that go in, you think about it and say, well, yeah, I mean, it can't be a thing. We have this idea that somehow this inanimate object is going to save our behinds, and no, it's not. We need that inanimate object. It's beautiful. But we're going to save ourselves. And it's not surprising when you look at it that girls and women came out number one when you think about it. If you're a game changer, what you will want to look at is all 100 solutions. And one of the mistakes we make is by looking for constantly the top solutions and focusing on the top solutions. If you look at Drawdown, we have 80 solutions we measured and modeled and 20 more which are so new you can't model them. But so let's just stick to the 80 for a minute. Those 80, some of them in the 60s and 70s have a relatively small impact compared to the top 7 or top 10 solutions. But you cannot achieve drawdown, you cannot achieve reversal of global warming unless you do them all. So there is no small solution. That's the point. We need all of it, and we need to honor all of each other. And so when somebody looks at that list, it's what resonates with them. Everybody could probably resonate with food waste, just unconsciousness about purchasing, consumption. Okay, so where do they make sense to you? Where do they make sense to your community? Where do they make sense to your village or to your town or to your company or to your city or to your state or your province or your farm or your grassland or your cows? It depends on who you are and where you are, your culture. And in that way, you know what it is going to be where you can actually make a difference and accelerate the uptake of a given practice or technique or technology, rather than saying, therefore, you should do this. I don't have no idea what anybody should do. I know that people know what they should do when they read and understand something that makes sense to them.